everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. All right, welcome back to the program. My guest is joining me right now. Dr. Muda Yusuf is the CEO at CPPE. Dr. Yusuf, good morning and welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Nancy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's get started with this issue of Mr. Trump. I don't know if you saw the video that was aired earlier at the beginning of this program. That was indeed posted by the White House media just about 10 or 11 hours ago. Still, Mr. Donald Trump reiterating in a war of words against our country, Nigeria. What do you really think about this recent development and perhaps the pace at which it is moving?
Well, first of all, let me say that it's unfortunate that we have this kind of development because it's a gross misrepresentation of the security challenges that we have in Nigeria. It's unfortunate that President Trump has narrowed it down to issues of the Christian victims of insecurity. And just as our government has said, and many other commentators, this is an issue that affects all Nigerians. Of course, there are components of it that we can say are specific to Christians, but there are also components that are specific to other Nigerians, Muslims, non-Muslims, and all of that. So it's an unfortunate misrepresentation. It's an unfortunate mischaracterization of the Nigerian situation. And unfortunately, because it's coming from such a global figure, it has the tendency to, create a very serious reputational and perception damage for the country. But the good thing about what he said from that video is that he was still, going to set up a committee to advise him on exactly what to do. And I'm hoping that the committee that he said will advise him will be able to drill down and move away from what looks like a political or emotional or sentimental motivations or narrative into more factual details and position of what the Nigerian security situation is. So that way, I'm sure they'll be able to take a more rational position on how to support the Nigerian government to deal with the problem of insecurity. Nobody is denying that we have challenges of insecurity, but the perspective from which President Trump is coming is really a great misrepresentation, and it can worsen even the situation here in Nigeria, which is what we don't desire. And if you look at countries where the United States had intervened, you will see that we don't fall at all into any of those categories. You'll be looking at countries like Afghanistan, countries like Iraq, countries like Syria, countries like Yemen, Somalia. These are countries that the United States had cause to intervene. We don't fall into this category. And our situation is not as bad as what had happened in these countries. And even with that, all the interventions in those countries, we know what came out of it. Nothing concrete came out of it. If anything, the situation in those countries were even left worse than what they were before the intervention. So I'm hoping that reasons will prevail and people will be more dispassionate and relate more to the facts on the ground.
This isn't just a security issue. It has a profound economic dimension to it, perhaps scaring off investment, even though what we saw yesterday, the oversubscription of Nigeria's Eurobond tells another story. The story it tells us that perhaps there is still confidence amidst this geopolitical risk. Also, perhaps that investors are trying to say, okay, let's hedge for our positions and let's take a look, or perhaps they're also calling this threat a bluff. What do you have to say about that, also regarding what we saw yesterday concerning the oversubscription?
Well, you know, Eurobond is commercial debt. And first, you need to look at the rates. I'm sure the rates will be well above what we find in many other clients. So if the rate is that attractive, and you know, investors in those bonds, of course, will have assessed our capacity to pay. They will have assessed our risk, the possible risk of default. Given the progress that we have made under the current reforms, given the level of our reserves, of course, it will be attractive to any investor, you know, that yes, the rate is good, and of course, this country has the capacity to repay, irrespective of what is happening, you know, with these geopolitical issues. So from that point of view, I think it's not surprising that you have this oversubscription. And I must caution that even as a country, it's not always the best for us to be taking much of commercial debt. Because
which is also a
the
loan.
biggest
Okay,
burden
debt
of
is a
debt
loan. You will
service.
pay back.
Yes, you pay back. And if you look at our debt portfolio, of course, the government have been trying to rebalance it. But the biggest burden of debt service is coming from commercial debts, which is Eurobond. Other components of debt are more concessionary. You know, either we are talking about bilateral debts, we are talking about, multilateral debts. You know, those ones are more concessionary. And some of those facilities are even targeted or tied to projects, particularly when you look at these bilateral debts. So we have more impact. So I'm concerned about the Eurobond because it is commercial debt. And my wish is that we progressively even reduce the component of commercial debt in our debt portfolio. So I'm a bit concerned that rather than reduce what we have in commercial debt, we seems to be continuing to dig into it. For me, I don't think it's a very good debt sustainability strategy. I think we should be looking more in the direction generally of reducing the debt because of the burden of debt service. But if we must continue, we should be looking more in the direction of concessionary debts, which comes from multilateral institutions, which also comes from the bilateral debt facility that we get.
You know, if we take a look at what has happened in the last few days, what do you think should be the single and most diplomatic as well as economic move that President Tinubu should take at this time to make this week, that is for the last few days, between Nigeria and the US to reassure investors that Nigeria perhaps is still a stable destination and not a geopolitical flashpoint as Mr. Trump is putting it?
Well, the government has reacted, although a bit belatedly. But I'm impressed by the level of response that we have seen in the past 1 week or so. First, if you listen to even most of the international media now, foreign media, when they, speak or broadcast the Trump narrative side by side, the Nigeria response is also put there, to show that really the messaging from President Trump is misleading. It's not the right kind of messaging. To also underscore the point that this is not something that is a genocide against Christians. It's possibly a genocide against everybody. And that the government of the day is not complicit. Wow.
Mr. Yusuf, Dr. Yusuf, are you still there? Can you hear me? Dr. Yusuf, are you still there? Okay, let's take a break. We just had a break in his connection. Let's try as much as possible to reconnect him again, and we'll continue the conversation. Do stay with us.
And the National Productivity Order of Merit Award goes to...
The only tomato paste manufacturer to win the National Productivity Order of Merit Award by the Federal Government of Nigeria, endorsed by the Association of Private Medical Practitioners of Nigeria. This is an evidence of 100% natural goodness, great quality and great taste. So eat healthy to live longer. Use Arisco tomato paste and products.
100% natural tomato. Namunde. Better food, na correct ingredients. They inside. Alelelelelele. Oh. Alelele. Oh.
Buy now and enjoy up to 20% discount.
All right, welcome back, Dr. Yusuf. Sorry about that. Whether it's internet or connection issues, yes.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, so you can land on your point,
yes. Yeah, the point I was making is that the Nigerian side of the story is now out there, and it's already on all the major foreign media, and people are beginning to appreciate. Even some commentators on some of these leading foreign media are also saying that what President Trump is saying is not the right thing, that it's not exactly an entire issue of Christian genocide. As a general security issue, and that if the president wants to take any action, it has to be in conjunction with the Nigerian government, so that jointly the government can be supported to deal with this issue. And of course, the Nigerian government is not averse to support from US. In fact, if anything, the Nigerian government has been seeking support, especially from the United States. So I think the narrative is beginning to change. And it's also a good development that...
Do you think it's changing for Mr. Trump? Do you think that narrative is changing for Mr. Trump? Because just a few hours ago, he spoke before a podium, you know.
He's somebody that doesn't admit easily, even when his position is wrong. He doesn't admit. But what is giving me some comfort in this is that he said he's expecting a particular report from a committee.
Yes,
and I'm sure those ones will
told congressmen and the House committee to investigate.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure those ones will be a lot more, understanding, a lot more detailed, a lot more, less emotional and less sentimental and less political, hopefully, in dealing with the situation. So I think, from that point of view, I think the situation may begin to dissipate. From the kind of rhetoric he started with, from what eventually will happen. And the fact that a country like China is also speaking out, that, Nigeria is a sovereign country, and the fact that what's on ground does not even call for the kind of rhetoric that is coming from
But if you look at it holistically, yes, Dr. Yusuf, let me add this, since you brought the Chinese dimension to it. If you look at it historically, China and US they've always been at loggerheads. I think was it on the program yesterday that I mentioned that if the US says something, China will say opposite. They always come up in terms of rhetoric condemnation. What I'm trying to ask now is the Chinese intervention by saying, oh, they shouldn't intervene in our sovereignty. Do you think that means anything? Because if you look at historically in other parts of the world where some of these crises have happened, it may not be this alleged Christian genocide dimension, but whatever it is, the US does not take Chinese view.
No, this is
so what difference will it make if the Chinese speak about what we're doing that is not true here in Nigeria, or that they shouldn't meddle into our sovereignty?
Well, we have strong relationship with China, particularly economically. We may not be ideologically aligned, but we have very strong relationship with China. That is one. Secondly, is that this is a unique situation because it is extremely very, very difficult to rationalize Trump's position on this matter. I mean, we have seen U.S. intervention in Yemen, in Syria. I'm not sure China has spoken against all those. But this is unique because there's no compelling case to be talking of military intervention. And again, this is based on gross misrepresentation. I think that is where the Chinese government is coming from. And even the EU. I think there was also a statement by the EU that, I mean, the US has to be careful. If you say what you are saying of China, what will you say about EU? EU is a strong ally. So from that point of view, I think there will be a rethink on the part of the US administration. And the fact again that he has said that some people should advise him, I'm sure the quality of advice is likely to change the dynamics of all this conversation. Because at the end of the day, what we need in Nigeria is to be able to tackle the problem of insecurity. And we need all the help that we can get. And the president has said so, the government spokesman has said so. So that is the direction I think the whole conversation will eventually go.
Let's talk about the Naira, the slide of the Naira. Of course, the Naira reacted to this development, not just the Naira, even the capital markets. What do you think about the sustainability of the Naira at the threshold of less than 1,005? Would there be a resistance level? Because at the time we were at a support level, you know, the Naira was hovering around 1,000. I think it even gave to 1,420 something, 21 Naira or so now, but is higher than that. What level do you see the Naira, and if it can hold below 1.5 with this crisis?
Well, you know, the market is very sensitive to information, financial markets now. And that is what I think is playing out with the Naira and also playing out to some extent in our stock market. It depends on how far this rhetoric and this decision goes. If we get to a point where reason prevails, where the US government, particularly President Trump, have a better understanding of the security dynamics in Nigeria, and if the government is also able to scale up and step up diplomatic engagement with the United States, I think we are likely to see, a lot more restoration of confidence, a lot more mitigation of current anxiety about the situation. And I'm hopeful that within a week or two, this is likely to happen, because we are likely to end up with a situation where the Nigerian government and United States will have to work together to deal with this security situation. If that happens in a matter of 1 week or two, then the situation may not degenerate beyond what it is. Having said that, we have some reasonable buffer now in terms of our reserves. The capacity to deal with that, I think, to deal with volatility in the exchange rate, the capacity has increased significantly. And of course, at the beginning of your program, you showed the meeting between the CBN governor, finance minister, the planning minister. It must be something around how to manage the current situation. So I'm sure that we are on top of it. It's not likely that the situation will degenerate to an extent that we have a major turbulence in the economy. But of course, I mean, it's fairly scary from the way Trump started. But I'm hoping that those rhetorics will be mitigated going forward.
What kind of policy synchronization do we need right now? Perhaps when I saw Cardoso, Edun, and Bagudu yesterday, in fact, I had mentioned it on Monday on this program. I mentioned it on Monday on this program that with the news of the threat of President Trump, that I expect our economic officials to start meeting immediately. I mentioned it on the program on Monday, and I'm happy that I saw that yesterday. So what kind of policy synchronization do you expect from these officials? Because there's what they call a war room, and you're able to weigh your options. Assuming this man does what he wants to do, Mr. Trump, what do we do? Assuming he does not do it, okay, what's the plan B? Dr. Yusuf, you understand what I'm saying? So,
I understand.
yes.
I think it's about scenario kind of strategy.
Exactly, scenario planning. Dr. Yusuf is gone again. A connection. Okay, let's try and see if we can reconnect with him, and that this virtual calls sometimes. Let's see if we can reconnect with him and see if we can continue that conversation. We will be right back. You can send your questions and comments to the WhatsApp number on your screen. I hope I see it quickly before the program ends so that we can also get your views. Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Previously on Moneyline with Nancy.
This development, do you think that diplomacy can calm the markets? That's one. And number two, do you see things getting better from now that the government, would take this seriously and begin to act right for us to see positive results moving forward?
Well, Nancy, interestingly, the government has already been jarred into wakefulness. You could see the government now wants to appoint diplomats.
And we'll be saying it for the last 3 years.
Yes. And they now want to do it as quick as yesterday, as soon as yesterday.
But it's not also going to kick in as quick as possible because there are processes to get an ambassador, even when you appoint.
Yes, but at least they will appoint 2
Yes.
years after being
And we've lost 2 years.
the current government. So with that will happen. And we saw the president swiftly change the service chiefs. So he possibly had an inkling of what is going to happen before taking that decision or took that decision. But I think everybody agrees that there is a need for government to be more effective in countering insecurity in the country. It's not enough to vote resources. The people must be held accountable. There must be defined targets. There must be defined deliverables and with timelines to say, look, we need to clear Zamfara in the next 6 months. And then this is the number of soldiers we need to deploy, this kind of equipment we need to do, this is the kind of technology we need to deploy, this is the level of intelligence we need to get, and then we clear it and put that behind us, and then occupy the place. That's how warfare takes. What we're dealing with in an asymmetric warfare, but we must deal with it and resolve it. It beggars logic that we have allowed insecurity to be democratized in the country. From a small state, one state in the north, we thought it was a northeastern, it's expanded to almost all the states in the northeast, and we thought it was a northeast thing. Now it's extended to the northwest.
Dr. Yusuf, welcome back.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yes.
once again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was saying that what we need to do now, and what I think our economic managers will be doing, is to do some scenario kind of strategy. Just as you said, and rightly so, that they should be looking at what policy options they put on the table. If President Trump goes the whole hog of embarking on this, if he doesn't, if there's those scenarios, I think it's a scenario kind of planning that I think must have happened with those economic managers. But the good thing is that they are talking, and the good thing is that we are seeing an increasing, collaboration and an improvement in the coordination of both fiscal and monetary policy, to deal with our macroeconomic challenges. So this is a very good development, and the optics are also very, very good, for those who are investors in the economy.
Now let's talk about this 15% petrol import tariff. I don't know. I'm sure you would have seen the news. From purely an economic standpoint, do you think that policy by government is okay? Does it carry some kind of economic logic versus the social reality on ground?
No, for me, it's okay, because we cannot have an economy that will continue to depend perpetually on imports. Because we have to make a decision. If you want to produce domestically, we must be ready to protect those who are producing. If you don't want to produce domestically, let everybody go and be importing. I mean, for Dangote, it is possibly even much easier. He already has huge tank farms. So just go out there and import petroleum products and be selling. But of what value will that be to the economy? Are we asking him to go and shut down the refinery and continue to import? Because for as long as importation is cheaper than domestic production, production will not be sustainable.
How about
So
the
for me,
impact? How about the impact on households, like I mentioned earlier, the social
the
impact on
the impact
households?
can be, you see, the impact can be mitigated. And let
How?
me say this.
That means that
Dangote
me and you
has
will pay
capacity.
more. Okay, go
No,
ahead.
not necessarily, Nancy, not
Okay,
necessarily.
okay.
Dangote has capacity to meet domestic demand. He has the capacity.
For the whole
What has
country.
happened over time?
Assuming something happens, what now happens? Isn't there a risk of
If anything,
depending on a sole,
no.
refiner? I don't even
Nancy,
want to talk of
don't,
NNPC because NNPC is something else.
we don't pray that something happens.
It's not a matter of
What is
prayer,
happening now?
Dr. Yusuf. It's a
Hold
matter of
on, Nancy.
reality.
Hold on, Nancy.
Yes, go ahead.
It's not as if importation of petroleum products is banned. It's not banned. What has happened is that an import duty of 15%. And in any case, how do you rationalize the situation? You want your refinery to work, and you are asking people to
Encouraging
import. They are not
imports.
paying VAT. They are not paying VAT. They are not paying import duty. How do you want the refineries to survive?
How about those that have
That
the
is why I
school of
said,
thoughts that perhaps we need to be a bit more self-sufficient, even apart from the Dangote refinery, before this kind of thing comes into place? Because there are other
we are
refineries
almost
also
there.
coming up on board. There's the Boa one, there are other refineries across the country that will soon come on board.
You see, Nancy, look at other sectors of the economy. Look at our flour mills. I can tell you, if you look at the total import charges for you to import flour into this country, it's about 60%. If you don't do that, the flour mills cannot be standing today. The same thing with cement. The same thing with the steel sector. The same thing with our pharmaceuticals. Today, you cannot import paracetamol into this country because you have the capacity. You cannot import multivitamin into this country unless you smuggle it. This is the way to support production. And for some of those products, import duty sometimes as high as 30–40%. We are talking here of 15%, for goodness sake. And if there are issues, I mean, nothing is cast in stone. The government can adjust. But we cannot compromise the principle of encouraging domestic production, of value addition, of conserving foreign exchange, of ensuring that we have more backward integration, and more importantly, about job creation. The more you import, the more you are creating jobs outside the country. And the outcome cannot be as terrible as people are painting it.
What do you think that NNPC should be doing now? Let me bring this in because we will soon round up. What do you think the NNPC should be doing now? NNPC is saying that there's the aspiration to ramp up oil production to, I think, 2 million barrels by 2027, and a lot of news coming now up around that. But a lot of Nigerians still do not trust the NNPC because, they plugged us into what we are into right now. Efficiency, effectiveness is not coming from that organization. And I don't know if this current GMD is also giving us that.
Well, I think the current GMD is on course in terms of reform. And I think the president is also given the right kind of political support to ensure that there is reform in the sector. Given his background, I'm sure he will deliver. I'm only worried about some elements of political pressure because for me, those refineries are not the kind of refinery that government should continue to throw money into. You know, I mean, it's like throwing good money after bad.
So they should
It's
be
even better to
privatized.
set up,
Or
yes,
sell
either
it
privatize,
off.
if you want to, or sell it off, or work in partnership with people who have capacity and come up with the kind of model we have in Nigeria and NLNG. If you come up with that kind of model, where you shield the whole system from bureaucratic and political interference, perhaps it can work. But not for government to continue to throw money into because we have suffered so much from the kind of resources that we have committed to those refineries.
Okay.
So that, for me, I think is something that is worrisome. I think the model should be working with partners and shielding the entire system from political and bureaucratic interference. Secondly, we need to encourage more people to come on board to refine petroleum products. You know, Nancy, you know what the business space is. Investing in real sector, investing in production is not the easiest
difficult
thing.
Yes.
So we need to encourage people who are in that space, give them incentives. We are talking about cost. You can give incentive to even bring down their cost of production.
Okay,
That is the way to make these things happen.
Dr. Yusuf, in 1 minute, I want to bring this in. We've been seeing this inflation trend in Nigeria in the last few months. The last inflation was printed at about 18%. I was reading a report, I think sometime a few days ago or so. Analysts are saying that they are looking forward to like a 15% inflation rate for October when it's being printed by the MBS. What do you think about this? And perhaps even if the Trump dimension will impact it, perhaps when the MPC meeting holds in the next 2 weeks or so. That is one. The second aspect of it is a few food prices are down. You remember that there was a time that the federal government did say is opening up, you know, giving that kind of incentive for import of food in the heat of that cost of living crisis. The food prices that we're seeing down drop. Do you think it's as a result of that? And if government shuts that down, do you think we'll still come back to high inflation? Because the government is trying to manage prices right now by these policies. So I could call it like artificial, it's artificial what we are seeing in cosmetic. I hope you understand what I'm saying, Dr. Yusuf.
I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
I think it's a combination of that emergency intervention and an improvement in domestic production.
Okay.
Clearly, we have seen quite a number of subnationals supporting agriculture, you know, particularly from the middle belt up north. A lot of support has gone into agriculture. Even in the southwest, we have seen significant improvement in intervention. So domestic output is increasing, which is a good thing. The intervention you said lapsed in December last year. It was a temporary intervention. It wasn't permanent. But the effect, you know, that has also impacted on prices, which is not. But the reality is that there's a lot of government support now to support domestic production.
Okay.
There's a special presidential committee headed by the vice president to deal with this issue of food security. So there's a lot of effort that is going into it, and I'm sure that those things will impact the situation positively.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yusuf, for joining us today and for your thoughts. I wish you a lovely day. Thank you. All right, I've been speaking with Dr. Muda Yusuf, the CEO at CPPE, and we've been looking at the different dynamics and the different areas at which, you know, talking about the economy, the geopolitical dimension of it, and the internal dimension of it. Thank you for your time again today. Please join us again tomorrow on this station from me and my team. Have a lovely day. Be the best you can be, and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Nnaji. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute, watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.